What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to go over a pretty interesting interview with Saber, and this might actually be the exact, because I think it was from IGN, could be the same interview that they talked about KOTOR, right? That KOTOR is alive and well, and don't worry about it, and all that jazz. So the COO talked about basically pricing and the way the gaming industry is going. And I honestly I overall liked what he's saying. I think he makes some interesting points. And because we've talked a little bit, right, about, hey, are games sustainable, in the current form that they're made in? Do games have to become cheaper? And maybe they become not less quality, but just smaller experiences, right? Almost literally going back to, say, PS3, 360 era, right? Is that going to happen? We've talked about that a lot on really all of my channels. Well, let's read some of the more interesting comments he made, and then we'll talk about it, because I think it really backs some of what I say up. So we talked about Space Marine 2, and it'll retail for $70, but only because he's concerned audiences would see a cheaper price as emblematic of poor quality. I think that as games become more expensive, the $70 title is going to go the way of the dodo bird. I do. And I mean, basically, like the top of the article talks about, $70 game will eventually become a thing of the past. So he's talking about getting rid of it, right? I just don't think it's sustainable. Look, you remember the hype for Cyberpunk, which I think actually ultimately performed okay, but when the expectations are so high and so much money is put into one title, it's hugely risky for the company that's doing it. What if it fails? You remember what happened when Ubisoft a couple of years ago, all their titles slipped out of the year, and then all of a sudden they were in an entirely different place. It's hard to recover from that. I think the market is going to shift to development, which is not necessarily lower quality, but there's going to be an emphasis on trying to find ways to reduce costs. And then he says, I think there's going to be a real shortage of game content over the coming few years. You've seen how many layoffs there's been. You see how many games have been killed, but we have got a lot of good projects going on, and that I'm really proud of and that I really feel really strongly about. So, he's especially at the end there, he's talking about his own games, right? Saber's games, but he's really also talking about the industry. I mean, he seems like a well plugged in guy in the sense that he kind of pays attention to, what's going on around him. Now, I mean, I would agree and maybe slightly disagree with that ending there. Will there be less games over the next few years? I mean, I think the industry kind of has highs and lows, right? I think the rest of this year is actually going to be we've talked about that, right? I think it's going to be relatively quiet. It's been a year so far of quality and quantity. As the year goes, though, I actually think it's going to be quality, but not so much quantity. You look at the next several months, and even going into the fall, there's not, I believe, nearly as many games, even ones you can kind of project out. I don't think there's going to be as many games this year as there were last year that are these big, genre-defining or era-defining type games, okay? But next year, I think there will. So I kind of feel like it's an on-off thing. Maybe 2026 is a slower year. 2027 is a bigger year. So I slightly disagree, but also we don't know for sure, you know what I mean? But the thing I really agree with him is, well, he mentions the $70, price, and then he also talks about how, developers or publishers are looking for ways to make games cheaper. Combine them. Just combine them. It really is what we've been saying. I think, and I've made this claim before, and this could be controversial, but I really don't see why it has to be. I think $70 is like right borderline, on the line / maybe even slightly over the line of what people are comfortable with buying your game. Now, I understand increased costs, and I get why game prices have gone up. I mean, you look at how they make games, that's gone up, so of course, some things are going to reflect that, right? But I just feel like human nature and who we are even as consumers, there's a breaking point. There's a point that you bring up to somebody and you say, hey, you willing to pay $40 for that? Yeah. You willing to pay $50? Yeah. You willing to pay $60? Oh, I don't know. That might be too much. Maybe I will. You willing to pay $70? No. Eventually, you're going to hit a price where statistically, the majority of people are going to say, nope, not doing it. And I really believe we're there. I don't know if it's maybe $75 or $80 is the no point, or if it's even right now. I feel like it's very 50-50 right now. You pitch a game for $70, you are factually getting people that buy it. People are buying games for $70. A lot of people aren't. Now, what does a lot mean? I don't have those numbers. I mean, I assume they have the numbers for their own games, but they might not have everybody's numbers, right? I've said that before, and I really think would stand by it. And now to connect it, to what he said, I mean, the way he talks about it is like $70 isn't going to be a thing, kind of going forward. And I do believe he might be right, because we talk about the Miles games of the Miles Morales, right? We talk about those type of games. And in order to convince people, we've talked about this too, games have to become shorter. They have to. You can't have games be 60, 70, 80 hours. They cost too much money, and then they're not making enough revenue off that because it costs too much to make the game, okay? How do you convince people to go backwards? Not in quality. Now, that's what upsets me. I mean, there were PS3, what I grew up on like Sly Cooper and even like the Wii or DS and stuff. But, okay, as I got into my teenage years, right, I played PS3 was kind of my thing, and Infamous and Resistance and all those kind of games. Uncharted was, my favorite thing. Those games are very high quality, and they were $60, and they're very short in the grand scheme of things compared to now. Compared to Horizon being 60 hours, back then Infamous was 12, and people were fine with it. In fact, Infamous sold really well, right? So how do you convince people to go backwards? Well, the quality might not be enough. Pitching somebody and saying, hey, this is 8 hours of extremely high quality, you might have people saying, yeah, but I want 50 hours. Now, I would argue you're not actually getting 50 high-quality hours in most games. You're getting probably still 5 to 10 quality hours. The rest is filler. That's maybe controversial. I think a lot of big games literally have filler that are not good, and then they do have good parts to it, but you're probably getting equal. It's just you're literally sitting there for more time, and some people think that equates to more money. I don't understand it. I don't support it, but I do understand where people are coming from. How do you get people to turn the clock back and to go backwards? You got to lower the price. There's really no other way to get through to some people, which might be actually the right way. There's nothing really wrong with it, right? The way to get through to some people, charge less. You expect a certain product for $70. Now, even if I may disagree with what that product is, what if we pitched you a different product? Now, you might not think it's 70. What if we charged you 50 for it? Well, okay, 50 is not 70. That's actually a lot cheaper. If the game costs less to make, if there's less people making it, if it takes less time to make it, they can get away with charging $50 instead of 70. They'll make their money, and they'll make people happy, because people will say, I would never pay 70 for it, but 50, I would pay 50 for it. That's kind of how you win. So, a lot of that's, I've said that kind of a piecemeal, right? I've said that in different videos over the last little while, but looking at his comments, I almost feel like we're on the same page. Publishers are going to start doing this. I truly believe that. Publishers are going to look for ways to make games cost less. And truly, there's two ways. You lay off a bunch of people, because if you have less workers, you pay less. But here's the thing. Games would then just take longer to make. You have a team of 400, you trim it down to 300, but you still want the same game. It's going to take an extra year and a half. You're going to still end up paying, actually, you might end up paying more for it, okay? The only way to do it, I think, successfully, and the second way, is to make a smaller game. Make smaller teams. Instead of a team of 400, have 3 teams of... Now, you could even maybe still lay people off. Have 3 teams of 100 people instead of 1 team. Let's even say of 300, right? Make 3 small games instead of 1 big game. Now, you might still want your 1 big game. So, okay, have your 1 big game. Maybe have 2 small games, right? You will make money, and you can charge less for those smaller games. You can get them out faster. The calendar will be more filled, and you'll still get the big one. Everybody's happy. I really don't think it's actually all that difficult. I feel like it's just these big AAA studios, right? Big AAA publishers. I think they're in their own heads with the whole bigger is better thing. Studios have to keep getting bigger. Games have to keep taking longer. Games have to keep literally getting bigger. All that jazz. No, they actually don't. They actually don't. And I think publishers are seeing it now, where they're saying, why in God's good name does it cost $300 million to make Spider-Man 2? Why? Can we make it for less? Well, you could, but it's going to have to be a smaller game. Okay, greenlight that game instead of... You know what I mean? I think we're getting there. I really believe we're getting there. I think maybe even Sony's the first one that'll end up doing it, because they're seeing it happen all the time to them. They're seeing all of their games are very high quality and high production value. They see the numbers. They know how much it costs. They might be the first ones to change, because they kind of have to. I think he's right, and I think in the next couple of years, you might see more of that like $30 to $50 range, like the Helldivers of the world and stuff like that. I think you might see more and more of it, because they're able to, and they need to find a way to be able to. And I think they will find their way. They either find their way or they die. I mean, truly, like, the gaming industry is cruel. It's a one mistake and you're out kind of system. If they can't figure it out, and when I say they, I mean anybody. If these publishers can't figure it out, they're done. They're screwed. They're going to lose all their money. They're going to go out of business. They can't take this long to figure out the solution. It's like the gaming industry is too quick for that, right? Like, you have to make split-second decisions, basically. So that's my thoughts on it. I thought they would make a good discussion, and I thought it was a good discussion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.